Hey guys, today we're going to be going over Module 3, Chapter 10, which covers length, area, and volume. So we can jump on in. So for the first equation, we're going to be looking at the doubling system. So for that, we're going to use this key, and we see here that MF equals a mouthful. So we're going to start off with two mouthfuls, and two mouthfuls is called a jigger. So we are going to double that or times it by 2. Whenever we times it by 2, 2 times 2 is of course 4. So 4 mouthfuls is going to be called a jack. We're going to multiply that by 2 or double it. And whenever we do that, we of course get 8. 8 mouthfuls is called a jill. We're of course going to double that, and it will give us 16 mouthfuls. 16 mouthfuls is called a cup. And then if we double that, then we'll end up with a whole bunch of mouthfuls, and that's going to equal 1 pint. So let's suppose that we take those mouthfuls and we put them into our little bucket here. And so if we added each of them, would it fill it perfectly or would it have more room? So the pail would hold 2 gallons, 4 bottles, 8 quarts, 16 pints, 32 cups, 64 jills, 128 jacks, 256 jiggers, or 512 mouthfuls to fill it. So using that same bucket again, with the information that we just learned, if we added all of those up, and we put them into our bucket, we would have 512 mouthfuls. So now we can take a look at area and perimeter of the triangle. So in the middle here, let me use my little annotate tool here. So if we look in the middle, then we will see, of course, that's going to be the area inside the middle of the triangle. But the outside of it is going to be our perimeter. So the formula to find the area of this triangle is going to be area equals half or 0.5 times base times height. So the input would be, as shown, the base would be 8.23. That's going to be right here, the base. And the height is, of course, going to be this line right here, and that shows us the height. So the height is going to equal 41.0 m. So then, of course, we have that in the application here, and then we would have the solution. And so, but what do we do for, of course, the perimeter? So for perimeter, it's a little bit more simple because all we have to do is add up all of the sides. So to do that, what we're going to do is just write 48.0 plus 69.0 plus 82.3. And that's going to equal 199.3 m. And that will give us, of course, our perimeter. But what about this shape? So it looks just the same, but of course our formula will. And so we just input, of course, that base, which is going to be here. And then our height is going to be this right here, our 37. When we input those in, we'll, and we put them into the formula, we'll end up with 1,642.8 inches squared. But what about the perimeter? So let's add that up. So we have 88.8 plus 37.0 plus 96.2 inches. So if we add those up, we will get 222 inches. And let's take a look at this one. Now this triangle is a little bit more tricky, but again, it's still a triangle, so it still holds the same formula. So we input those in to our formula, and we see, of course, that our height is going to be here, and then our base is going to be here. And so if we input those in, then our solution will be 8.06 centimeters squared. But I mean, let's go ahead and find the perimeter. So it's a little tricky because, you know, we're given all of these numbers, but we know this number right here is, of course, the height. So we've already used it, so we can cross it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the sides. So we're going to start with the base, and that's 6.2 plus 3.1 plus 8.5. If we add all of those up together, then we'll end up with 17.8 centimeters. So this is a little tricky. We're going to have our circle, and we're going to try to find the area for the circle. So that formula looks like this, and that's area equals pi r squared. And so we know that r is our radius, and our radius is 5. So we just input that in, and whenever we do, we will end up with 25 pi units squared, and that's going to be the area of our circle. For the large square, it has to have a radius equal to half the diagonal of the square, meaning the formula would look like a squared plus b squared equals r squared. So that's going to be 5. So 5 squared plus 5 squared equals r squared. And so if we did that, it would equal 50 pi units squared. So if we, of course, input both of those in, then we would see that number again down here. We subtract those, and we would see that we are correct just by checking ourselves. So this is another tricky one, and so I just included the formulas for us. So to find the volume of a cone, the volume is 1/3 base times height. So then we would input, of course, the area of the circle, and that would be area equals pi r, and then the volume of the circular cone would be, of course, 2/3 r. I'm sorry, 2/3 pi times radius. And so I've listed, of course, each of those, how we would find the formula for each of them. So it's a little tricky, and if we had the numbers, then we could do that, but I just really wanted to touch on, of course, the formulas to do so. As we saw, of course, in the previous equations, that it's really easy if you have the numbers to just plug them in, and then we can always utilize our calculator to help us kind of simplify and find the answers to those equations. So let's look at the right trapezoidal prism. So for that, we're going to take the base. To find the base, we take half open parentheses a plus b close parentheses h. And so if we were to, of course, put those together, then we would equal 258 centimeters squared, and that is for the base. So to find the perimeter, of course, we're going to add up all of those sides together, and we would have 70 centimeters. And then to find the surface area, meaning that flat platform, we would take each of those and we would multiply them and then add them together, and that is how we would get 796 centimeters squared. So taking a look at the right triangular prism, and something that I want to point at, you know, there's many different kinds of different polygons or shapes, and for that, whenever we say a right triangular, you know, whatever the shape may be, that means that it forms right angles. So with that, we see, of course, right here, the little, goodness, I butchered it, but that's okay. The little square right here, those squares mean that those form a right angle. So anytime you see those, we know that the degree of this is 90 degrees. So I just wanted to stop and point that out. So again, we just do the same thing that we just did, and we input those numbers in, and that is how we would solve it. So surface area for this shape is a little different, and of course here's the formula. It gives us the numbers, so we simply just put the numbers in. And whenever we do, we would see that our surface area of this shape is going to be 728 feet squared. So to find the volume, it's a little bit different though, because what we're going to do is do 3/4 pi r to the third, or cubed, plus pi r squared h. So we just take those numbers and we input them in, and whenever we do, of course, we can get our answer that way. The surface area for this cylinder, well, it's a cylinder cone. So all we would do is, of course, input the numbers again, and we would get 176 meters squared. For our volume, we have a little bit of a different, formula here, and it looks really tricky, but I promise if you just take in the numbers and you just work step by step, then it's really easy to follow, and you would find that the volume is 5.70. That's all I have for us today, guys, and I'll see you in the next Team Teach.